Alright, it's mid-November, wintertime fishing conditions. We just had a bunch of rain. The rivers are up and winter fish are in some of the local rivers. Today I'll be fishing an Intruder. We got cold water temps, winter fish, big flies, a lot of movement, and get some of these cold fish, get some aggressive responses and hopefully biting. So let me show you how to tie it, and hopefully you'll find success with it this winter. Alright guys, the Intruder. The way I tie it, kind of a hybrid between like the traditional one and kind of a new style that I've learned from Matt McCrary. I'm going to start with frodo tubing, extra small and medium. The extra small fits into the medium. And this is about 2.5 inches. And I like to glue these tubings together. Matt doesn't, but he's got magical gifts of frodo tube, and if I don't glue mine, they tend to fall apart. So instead of using Zap-A-Gap or something, I'm just going to throw some UV glue in there. I'm going to take my thread and just cinch it down on these points. And what I did is I cut the medium at a sharp angle and a long angle, so as I tie up it can kind of pinch on both tubes. Okay, now that I got it all tied in, just going to hit it with the light real quick. Just to cure this. Okay, and I'll make sure everything's still spinning freely like it should be. Wrap my thread to the rear. I'm just going to tie on a ball of dubbing here in the back. I don't really worry too much about a dubbing loop with my dubbing. If I'm using a synthetic dubbing, I for sure don't do it because this stuff condenses down. If I'm using Angora or something like a natural fiber and I want those guard hairs to really stick out, then I'll do a dubbing loop, but for this it doesn't really matter a whole lot. Actually, I don't think a dubbing loop works as good. It's a little hard to control. Okay, once I tie my dubbing ball, I'm going to kind of push everything back. Run my thread forward. I'm just going to take a brush and pick out the back, so it gives it nice and fuzzy. Now for the stuff that's going to hold up my ostrich or rhea or whatever I decide to use. I'm going to use Arctic Fox. Pick out a clump here. And all these guard hairs are what I'm going to use. I'm just going to kind of pull all the fluff out of the bottom to keep it from completely saturating. I'm going to fish it. So now I've combed out kind of the bottom here, fluff here. Now you've got to determine how long you want it. This Intruder is going to be a pretty big one, so I'm going to have it extend pretty far past everything. I'm just going to place it around the hook or around the tube, like a loose wrap, and tie everything in. Now you're going to have to turn this to really kind of, there's always a bare spot. Just try to make sure that your second clump is even when you go to cover that spot up. Okay, now that's all tied in. Clip off all the excess. You can see this is really going to help hold everything up. Now for the rhea or the ostrich or whatever you decide to use, I've got some rhea here. Rhea's quite a bit finer than ostrich. You can find some ostrich that you'd swear could pass for rhea, but I just happen to have this handy. You can see the difference between the two. Here's the rhea and here's the ostrich. And actually, I'm actually going to use the ostrich just because I like the color a little better. So go ahead and clip off a pretty good sized chunk. You're going to want to clump it up in your fingers here and just kind of even up all these tips. Spend a few minutes doing that just for aesthetics. That should look pretty good. Now for spinning this stuff, tie a dubbing loop in. Now this is key. If you just tie a dubbing loop in, you see there's a gap there in my thread, so I'm actually going to pinch it together and tie my dubbing loop in and then back. And what that does is it closes this thread gap right here, so it's not spread out, and so your ostrich will actually stick in it. So I'm just going to take a little dubbing wax, put it on the thread. That helps the ostrich stick to it so it doesn't just fall out. And the dubbing twister, the spinning style dubbing twister, is the only way to go for this stuff here, or at least for tying in your ostrich. Okay, now I'm just going to lay it in at the length I want. And hold it with my thumb. Clip off the tag ends close. And use your needle to spread it out a little bit. Take your dubbing twister, put it in. Now you can actually spread this out a little more if you want. And twist away. Now in this step, it's important to use 6/0 thread. For doing this. If you use 8/0, that thread will break on you every time you go to twist it, and it can be really frustrating. Pull them all back, and then wrap it around the hook shank. They'll kind of go everywhere on you like this, but that's alright, you can fix them in a sec. Pull them all back. Tie off your dubbing loop. Trim it. Pull all that ostrich back again. And wrap forward. Or wrap over it rather. Okay. Now sometimes you see it doesn't get completely even. So sometimes you may have to clip a couple off your plume here and tie them in one by one, just to kind of even everything up and make sure you don't have any gaps. It's one of those things that the fish won't care about, but if you're spending the time and the money on materials to tie one of these flies, you don't want to do it to where you think it looks good. Okay, so that's our aft. I'm just gonna finish it off with just a piece of guinea, purple guinea, just to kind of tie it together. Another one of those things you really don't need, but like I say, if you're spending the time to do this, you might as well get one that you think looks cool. The name of the game with winter steelhead, as everybody knows, if it doesn't look cool, you're not going to fish it. Alright. So we got our rear portion done here. At this point, if you want to, you can add a little flash. I like angel hair for my flash, just because it's nice and thin on intruders and stuff. So I go ahead and just tie some in, double it back over. When you clip it, you're going to want to run your scissors down and clip it all at uneven lengths. That way it actually moves in the water and it doesn't just clump up. Okay, so now for our body material, there's a ton of stuff you can use. Traditionally, I believe we're using something like diamond braid or something like that. I like this the Garden mini flat braid. You can also use dubbing, you can palmer hackle, you can do a million different things. If you do dubbing, it's important to keep it pretty sparse so it doesn't soak up a bunch of water and take a long time to sink. That's kind of one of the traits of this fly, is it sinks pretty fast. And that's why originally there was just this either flat braid or diamond braid for a body, because it didn't soak up any water. So I'm going to need to do this in two sections here. And I'm going to tie it right to where the tube meet up, both tubes meet up. Okay. So at this point I'm actually going to tie off my thread, and this is the part that I jacked from Matt. Instead of using big heavy lead eyes and stuff like that, we're using the cones, the tungsten cones that come with that work with the frodo tube system. But he actually tucks it behind the rest of the material, so you end up with a fly that looks really clean and just has a really nice sloping profile to it, and you don't get those kind of barbell eyes that look kind of out of place sometimes on an intruder. So real quick, I'm just going to cement the thread that I tied off. This is one of the tungsten cones I was talking about. I'm going to actually slide it on. And then reattach my thread. Just going to push this cone back and get it tied in nice and secure. Build up a little thread base to it. Once we build up a thread base against the cone to make sure it's not going to go anywhere, we're going to take our second shot of the Arctic fox. Again, I'm going to do the same thing and just remove a lot of that fluff off the bottom. And you can take your needle and kind of comb it out. You just want to make sure that you're holding the tips really tight so you don't take out the tips with you. You can see how much of that underfur's coming out. Okay, so again, I'm going to actually tie this in a little long. You can tie it in real short if you want to see more of the body. But I kind of like the body to glow through this fox first. So now I'm just going to wrap it around with my fingers like I did before. Tie it in. That one actually looked pretty even. Give it just a few good wraps. Clip off the excess. And we're ready for segment number 2. On this one, I'm going to mix my blue and my purple. So I'm going to take another clump of blue here. Even up the tips just like I did before. Now I'm going to take some purple. Clump up my fingers, even up these tips. Pull out some of the real shorties. Lay it on top of your blue. I'm going to make my dubbing loop just like before. I'm going to wrap it, pinch it, and then tie it back just to make sure it stays nice and closed. Wax it. Throw my clump in and judge how long I'm going to want it. That looks good right about there. I like to stick it about halfway between my rear ostrich, so it kind of overlaps about halfway. Stick it up with my thumb, clip out the buttons. Take my dumbing twister, and now I can spread these out. And spin it. make sure you can try to pull everything back. It doesn't always work too gracefully. But like I said, we can fix all that later. Tie off your dubbing loop. Pull everything back. And then wrap it. So now we've got a pretty full ostrich. I've actually got a bare spot right there. Clip a couple singles and fill it in. Okay. Now I'm going to throw in a little bit of marabou. Like I've said, with all these spay flies, a good spay quality marabou is really important. We actually sell at the shop spay marabou. It's not just a standard blood quill. It's been hand selected and packaged just for winding on spay flies. Tie it in tip first. And then wrap it. Tie off the quill. I'm going to add a little bit of flash just to even it up with the rear. And I'm going to finish it off with a little purple guinea. I'm going to try to find the biggest feather I can out of this clump here. Really, to get the best guinea, you have to buy a skin. You can buy the jumbo guinea, that stuff's pretty good all in all, but you really get the cream of the crop if you just buy the skin. So again, I'm going to tie it in tip first. Okay, tie it off. And we'll finish. Alright, so after the finish, slide it off. Your adapter. Cut it nice and short. And burn the end, just taking care not to burn any of your material. And real quick, slide it back on. That way it keeps that hole open as it dries. There you have it. Finished Intruder.